Wondering how to best travel with a chronic illness? As restrictions are dropping in many places, many people are eager to get out and travel once again. But how can you best do this with a chronic illness? How can you best do this with POTS, or maybe if you have long COVID POTS? You might be feeling scared about not feeling well on the trip, so you're thinking maybe, how can I make my travel as accessible as possible to minimize the risk of symptoms? Will I be able to enjoy my vacation? Is it worth the risk to travel? Now, I truly do believe that travel is an amazing, magical experience. It opens us up to new experiences. It helps us connect with the beauty of new places. If done right, it also helps restore your spirit and your body. And not to mention that it has numerous health benefits. It relieves stress, boosting creativity, boosts happiness, lowers the risk of depression, etc. So if you want to travel and get out and do things, there is no need to sacrifice this. You might need to make adjustments, but you can still have a relaxing and fulfilling time away. So let's go through some modifications that can help. First, let's talk about planning and research. So research is extremely important to doing a trip like this, mostly when you're not feeling well. Research shows that planning a trip can actually boost our happiness. Just the simple art of anticipating the trip makes us happier and makes us more excited. And it's a big plus, even if the trip does not go according to plan, at least you are still enjoying yourself when you're fantasizing about the trip. So what needs to be researched and looked at? Number one would be weather. So many chronic illnesses are affected by weather, not only by how hot or cold it is, but by the humidity, things like pollen levels. So this might be an important consideration to make when planning a trip. For example, in the US, Florida is a tough destination for many because of the weather and the humidity. Of course, if you're going to a place where it is either hot or humid and you still want to go there, do it. You just have to plan a little bit better with how you will handle the heat, which is something we'll talk about in the second half of the video. The next important thing to research is the itinerary and activities. Now with social media and this fear of missing out, FOMO, and just pure excitement, it can be really tempting to overexert yourself trying to visit every landmark, trying to do every activity. And that's why it helps to plan in advance. So let's say you're going somewhere for a week. What are the top sites and activities that you want to do? Try to make an itinerary for yourself with one main activity a day. Depending on your current energy levels, this activity might take something like 1 hour or might take something like 3 hours. Like this, if you're feeling great, you do the activity and then you might decide to do something spontaneous afterwards, like walk around the city or explore other areas. And if you're not feeling great, you can go to the hotel and rest, knowing that you have checked off your one activity. Also, it's important when you are planning a trip to plan 1 or 2 days of nothing. That way, if you did fully miss a day of activities because you weren't feeling well, you could still make it up. So that reduces a lot of that fear of missing out, and you're still doing all the activities that you want to be doing, but without overexerting yourself. Like this, you'll also know at the end of your trip that you did hit all the top spots of the city or the location where you're at. Now, when it comes to booking tours and activities, only really book them if you really have to. This puts a lot of pressure on people, mostly if you're not feeling well and you have to kind of show up at that specific time. So booking things that have free cancellation is a good way, or some kind of free local activities or something like that. Some other ways to get out that have more flexibility. And if you do have something booked, pay attention to the time. It's really important to pay attention to the time, as many with these kind of illnesses do have difficulty with sleep, right? You might have insomnia, or you might not be feeling well, or you might just be feeling particularly worse in the morning. So a noon activity or an afternoon activity might be best. Traveling also presents us with the opportunity to be mindful. So how can you travel with this idea in mind? One of the best ways to do so is by not rushing. Really appreciating each moment. Now, this is something that's hard for a lot of people to do, just because you go somewhere and you want to take all these pictures and you're doing all these things. But with chronic illness too, it does force you to slow down, as rushing more might also kind of trigger some symptoms and might not make you feel well. So for example, let's say you've had already one of the activities we talked about and you already did it. What should you do next? Perhaps you sit at a cafe, you enjoy a meal slowly, or you just, people watch. You rest somewhere, you watch the crowds. In life, we tend to always rush to the next moment, and as a result of this, we're rarely kind of fully absorbed in that moment. So here it also helps, when it comes to the research we were talking about, to be aware of the locations and have a few places like where you can rest while you're traveling, scoping out little travel resting spots. These spots are also really important to remember because the three biggest mistakes that I see when people with a chronic illness travel and what aggravates their symptoms is either 1, they're doing too much, 2, they're not drinking enough water, or 3, they're not eating the right foods. So actually researching and looking around the places to go, restaurants, cafes, tackle all these 3. How come? Well, 1, when you're hydrating, you need to go to the bathroom more often. And hydrating is incredibly important when you're on a trip, mostly when it's warm. And mostly if you have POTS, you really, really need to take hydration very seriously. So of course, if you need to go to the bathroom more often, restaurants come in handy. You also need to rest more often, so the restaurant fulfills the purpose. And also, if you look in advance at the menu, which nowadays a lot of restaurants do have their menus somewhere where you can see them, you can also decide in advance, instead of kind of deciding in the moment when you're hungry and maybe when you're not thinking so clearly, what's the best food to have off the menu that you know will not trigger your symptoms. A lot of people with POTS or other chronic illnesses have some kind of food triggers, and when consuming it, their symptoms do tend to worsen. So the most common culprits are gluten, dairy, sugar, alcohol, processed food, etc. Some can consume it in small quantities, but often on vacation is when we tend to eat larger quantities of these. So it's also important to be aware of the various things that you can have off the menu, while of course striking a balance. You still want to experience the culture, and food is part of that. But how can you do that mindfully, enjoying the food while still minimizing trigger foods? So in this first part, we really focused a lot on the kind of research and the kind of planning you could do in advance to make the trip as enjoyable as possible, to take it, slowly, to really enjoy it and enjoy every moment. In the second part of the video, I'd like to talk about various helper tools that you could take along with you. So everyone has really different triggers and different levels of where they're at. So of course you decide what's best for you. But for example, let's say oftentimes when you travel, there is a lot of walking and there's a lot of standing in line, particularly if you're doing some kind of activity and you have to stand in line for it. Even when people talk about going to amusement parks, and a lot of people wonder, should I do it? Is it safe? One of the problems people say is they tend to be more or less okay on the rides, but it's waiting in line for the rides that's a problem. So here's where, for example, having a cane or a walking aid can come in handy. Sometimes people will avoid using these because they might feel embarrassed, which is this feeling of embarrassment is a normal feeling to have at first. It does get easier over time. But walking aids provide a lot of independence, right? They help you be more active and they help you do more. It's like having a little personal assistant. There are even canes with seats, or even little foldable seats that you can take with you. That way you can rest practically anywhere. These are also not extremely heavy to carry around, so they might also work for that. Now, heat might also make you need to rest more, as heat tends to aggravate symptoms. So something like a cane with a seat, this 2-in-1 combo, might come in particularly handy. And in general, to go with that, rest when you need to. Really listen to your body, even if that means crouching or kneeling over, etc., sitting cross-legged on the ground. If I don't feel like drawing too much attention when I rest, usually I have like a little backpack with me, a little purse. I'll just kind of kneel or crouch over and pretend to look into my backpack or purse for something. So that's a little hack that I've used quite a lot, and it's always been nice to just rest like that without anybody asking me any questions. So we talked a little bit about sitting and resting and how important that is. The other important consideration we talked right at the beginning of the video, which is heat. Now, right now it is summer, so let's say you are going somewhere and it is warm. Heat is something that triggers a lot of people and triggers their symptoms and triggers also fatigue and a lot of other symptoms. I'll probably make a separate video on just heat, as it is a really important topic, but for now, let's talk about a few of the things that can help with heat in a moment. Cooling towels and headbands, cooling headbands is a big one. Some people have difficulty with regulating the body temperature, so they might feel just extremely overheated, like they're kind of burning up from the inside. And this can affect the fatigue and it can affect symptoms. So when you are using, for example, these cooling towels, be aware of your pulse points, as these are actually the quickest way to cool down. Our body has pulse points. The most effective ones are at the neck and the wrists. So I'll often take my little headband and I'll wear it kind of around here. Sometimes I'll just wear it around here, and I'll kind of just dab my wrist with it as well. And this helps a lot. And it also helps when I do have the headband and it kind of covers the top of my head. It helps because the sun is not beating down so harshly. And what's really cool about these little headbands and towels and everything else, one, they're quite inexpensive to buy. And two, once you wet them and you kind of shake them out, they stay cool for a few hours. So that's actually pretty cool. Cooling vests are also another option. So they can be worn and they really keep you quite cool and nice. So that's another really great option. And that's just kind of a few of the devices and the things that are out there. There's so many more nowadays, things that can either keep you cool or keep you rested. So that plus planning is extremely important and can make the trip a lot more just enjoyable for you and for your loved ones. Traveling is a really magical experience, so it gives you a lot of memories to cherish for years down the road. So with a little bit of preparation, you could feel not only prepared, but confident, excited for your trip, and you could enjoy it a lot more as well. So I hope you found this video really helpful, and I would love to hear your biggest takeaway down in the comments below. Let me know, what are your favorite traveling hacks? And if you want more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you hit the bell, you'll get a notification each time I post a new video. Take care, have a wonderful trip, and I'll see you next time.